Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps of the Canaan Report. We got a special guest in the studio with us today, Captain K, a.k.a. Michael Kubiniec. He's on the Iredell County School Board. Mike, go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Hey, good morning, Micah. How you doing?
I'm good. It's not morning, though.
That's right. It's this afternoon.
It's evening.
I had a very special morning this morning.
Yeah, we did have a good morning. We got Donald Trump in there, didn't we?
Excellent.
It's great. But we got a great show for everyone lined up out there. We're going to talk about what it's like running for school board, being on the school board, everything you've been through, talk about some of our issues in our school system. And we're just going to put everything out there for folks and tell you all the story as we see it. But before we get into that, we need to start out with a prayer. We got Bill. Where you at, Bill? Bill's come. Bill's our producer out there. Got Reese in there too. Bill, go ahead and start our show off with a little prayer, brother.
Dear Lord, thank you for blessing us with this opportunity to hit the airwaves yet again. Dear Lord, bless this great nation. Dear Lord, bless the Patriots listening to this great show. And dear Lord, thank you to Micah and his guests for their time today. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bill. So Cap, you're on the Iredell County School Board. How's it feel, man?
Well, thank you, Micah, for letting me come on your show. I want to say one thing up front, though. I'm representing myself here today.
Yes.
So any opinion, views, they're all solely my own. They don't represent anyone else or any other entity, just my own personal opinion.
Yep. So everyone out there, this is just Cap coming on as a man. He is on the school board, but he's here as a man today giving his opinion.
Yes, and I think it's just great to just generate awareness and knowledge within the community of how our school systems are working.
Yeah. So tell us, man, you've been on the school board, what, 2 years now?
Finishing, just starting the third year, yes.
Has it been everything you thought it would be?
Actually, no. That's one thing when you run for elected office, you don't really know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of work. I think it's more work than anyone realizes. Speaking from the school board perspective of how much time, energy you have to put in order to be a good contributing member.
Yeah. Well, what made you run for school board? You know, where are you from? New York?
Yeah, Buffalo,
New York.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. You spent 30 years in the Navy?
30 years in the Navy.
What were you doing in the Navy?
Well, I was in the submarine force.
Submarine force. You're a captain on the submarine, weren't you?
I wasn't captain of a submarine, but my retired rank was captain.
Okay.
So I did 12 years of active duty and then another 18 and a half on reserve.
30 years.
Yeah, so did a lot of great things, had a lot of fun.
Well, then you got out of there and you got into, what was it, technology?
Yeah, a couple high-tech companies.
Yeah, and you got into finance too, didn't you?
A little bit of that, yeah.
You know how to pick winners and losers, don't you?
Well, doing pretty good at that.
You got a good look. There's a lot of respect for a man who can pick winners out there.
Well,
and
I've been very fortunate in my life, and if you can retire at 57, that's what you should be shooting for.
I would love to retire. I'd love to retire right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we get a bigger audience. We can do that. What do you say, Reese?
Let's go for it.
Let's go. So you were in the Navy for 30 years. You were traveling all over the world, right?
Yep.
What made you land here in Iredell County?
Well, when I was living in California for 16 years, it just changed so much from the late 90s, and I just had to get out.
Yeah,
so
change as
politically. It changed very politically. The cost of living is horrendous. I was in San Francisco Bay Area. Cost of living is just incredible. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to retire there.
Yeah.
So I was working for a high-tech company at the time, and I just began a job search. And fortunately, I landed with a company out of Hickory, of all things, another high-tech company. And so I moved to North Carolina in 2012.
Okay. And you've been here in Iredell the whole time?
No, and I lived in Hickory for 2 years and then moved to Iredell in 2014.
Okay.
So I like to say I've been a North Carolina native since 2012.
There you go. It's about the same time I've been here, too. I want to say 2015, 2014 is when I moved here from West Virginia. I've loved it, though. Loved it.
Oh,
great.
Love it. I love it here, too.
Great county, great people, just through and through. So you spent 4 years living in the county, then you just decided to run for school board, huh?
No, I didn't just decide.
Tell us why, man. Why would you, a captain of the Navy, put yourself on the school board dealing with all this mess?
Well, in the summer of 2021, I was asked by a couple of neighbors if I would run for school board. Totally out of the blue. They were politically involved in the community. They went to school board meetings and other things, and there was an opening coming up in the 2022 election, and they asked me to run. They said, "Hey, we think you're a good guy," and that's basically the minimum qualification. So I think I passed that. I'm a good guy for running for school board. But I didn't seek it out, but I did some discernment. I spoke to school board members. I spoke to the superintendent, to other elected officials, other people in the community to find out what it's all about, what it's like. Prayed on it,
Mhm.
and then when it was time to file, I think in December or January of that year, end of 2021, I filed to run. So, so I didn't seek it out, and it came, and some reason it found me.
Yeah.
So
Anyone wondering who his neighbor was? Is Melissa, wasn't it?
we'll just leave it at that.
Sweet woman right there.
That's right.
I remember that time very clearly because I was very involved in all of those elections, that election cycle.
Right.
You and 3 other people
hmm
ran as a team, didn't you?
Like-minded, for
Yeah,
sure.
well,
For sure.
Ran as a team. 4 people who were going to get in there and work together and make a positive impact.
Right. Right.
Well, we'll get into that. So you decided to run for school board. The primary, you didn't have a primary opponent, did you?
I did not, because fortunately, the Republican Party felt that I was good enough.
Good enough, huh?
Good enough to make the team.
Yeah. Then you had a general opponent. I'll never forget that. I remember you out there campaigning hard. You were at them polls every single day.
Well, even but leading up before that, over the summer, walking the neighborhoods, and
Yeah.
I had an incredible army of volunteers that went door knocking
Mhm.
to so many dozens and dozens of neighborhoods.
Mhm.
So I had a great group of volunteers that liked what I was saying and liked what I believed in, and then when it came time for the election, early election process, the 2 weeks at the polls every single day from essentially 6:30 in the morning until 7 at night. That's a grueling process.
It is.
Yeah, I wish we didn't have a early voting period that long. It's, I mean, I don't, the poll workers too. I mean,
Mhm.
they have to put in incredible hours to make that happen, and I'm the guy running. But there were plenty of days where it was really cold outside,
Yep.
raining like cats and dogs. So it's tough.
It
It's
is. Well, you put through it. You had a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? People saying bad things about you out there too. I remember that election. Your opponents and all them, they were just calling you all kinds of names.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because whether it's, I mean, you can expect your opponent, but you had the local press saying negative things even before you even got into office,
Mhm.
and then you have people in your own party
Yeah.
not saying nice things
Oh,
about
there
you.
was the
So,
knives were out for you, buddy.
Yeah,
They
so-
were calling you all kinds of Captain Kangaroo, I think
But,
is what it was.
but I think the people in South Iredell, where I'm from, at the very south end of the county,
Yeah.
they liked my message, and they liked what I wanted to do.
Well, we're going to get into a lot more stuff here. We got to go take a minute break. We'll be back here in 1 minute. We love y'all. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, Iredell County, to the Canaan Report. This is your host, Micah Phelps, and we've got Michael Kubiniec with the Iredell County School Board member here in our studio today telling us his story. So you just told us why you ran for school board. You kind of got selected by people in your neighborhood. It's not something you set out for. It's people thought you would get on there and do a good job. And maybe it had to do with 30 years being in the military, being on a submarine, knowing how to run businesses and be successful. Maybe that's why people wanted you in there, because they saw what you were capable of.
Well, I think when you have a broad skill set,
Mm-hmm.
in my case, technical, several engineering degrees, master's degrees, skill set in financial planning,
Mhm.
a leadership, being in high-tech companies, managing people,
You're good at
developing new
solving
products.
problems.
Right. So a broad skill set, and I think that's valuable certainly in any setting.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it would be helpful to be on a school board.
Yeah. Well, you're great at solving problems. You got a history. Your whole life, you've been solving problems and fixing things.
Hmm.
When you ran for school board, did you think you'd win? Let's be realistic.
I thought I would win.
You thought you would?
Yeah, and I thought I would win because number one, I worked really, really hard
You did
for it.
work. You worked harder than anyone else.
And I thought the things that why I was running, the priorities that I had, what I wanted to do if I were to win, I think resonated with people.
And what did you want to do? Like once you got in there, I remember that the first meeting y'all had. Everybody was kind of like, "Oh my goodness, we're in here. What happened?" Like, it wasn't expected, and it was very uncomfortable. But you didn't let that stop you. You got in there, and you got selected vice chair.
Yep.
The first meeting. Tell me, like, what you got. You coming in there. You haven't served on a school board. You haven't really been involved in politics that long. So, what was your plan coming in there on your first day, your first week? Like, what did you want to accomplish?
Right. So even before the election, I had attended over a year's worth of school board meetings. So I was very familiar with the meeting process, how it went, but the issues they were talking about. And so here are the four main issues that I felt that I wanted to make as my priorities. Firstly, we have incredible teachers. We have teachers that take their student issues home with them. They're answering emails from parents and sending emails to parents at 11 o'clock at night. They're working their butts off for our children.
Yes. We have some of the best teachers in the county. So all of our Iredell County teachers out there, we love y'all. We support y'all. We want y'all to, have maximum authority in your classroom and have the backing of your principals and everyone else to do your job.
Yes, but they don't get compensated enough. And
they don't.
And that's an
They don't
issue
get paid
with
enough
our North Carolina legislature. So that first priority was, what can we do? What innovative ideas, what new solutions we can do to help increase teacher pay, maybe some rewards programs, some other benefit programs, increase supplemental pay. What can we do? And so we worked with the superintendent 2 years ago to put in some programs that help do that. Funding, I think, for this year was extremely tight, and I think they had to back off on a program. And I think one of them was, if you didn't miss any days in a given month, you got like an extra bonus. If there was extra money for the classroom, and there were some other things that we were able to do. The second thing that I really wanted was, we've got 38 schools in the county. About half of them are really knocking it out of the park. Actually, 2/3 of them are knocking it out of the park.
Okay.
But we have a whole, as I've come to learn, we have some schools that are not. So what can we do to improve these schools? I sat through a whole year's worth of meeting, and not once did I ever hear them talking about low-performing schools. So these are things we have to turn around, low-performing schools. We have some new schools we got to build, a credible amount of growth in the county. We've got a new high school that we have funded, or soon will be funded with some bonds. We've got a new elementary school that's the designs and the plans are being finalized. And we even probably have 2 more schools after that have to follow. So we need some cost-effective use of our tax dollars into building those right schools in the right places to minimize the cost and make them the best schools we can for the county.
So we got some planning to do for the future, is what you're saying. We got schools we're behind. That means, well, who cuts the check for the schools? Because people out there, they don't understand all this.
Right. So the entity responsible for building schools is the county commissioners.
County commissioners. So, for example, with the new high school, they approved funding of, I think, $130 million for the new, or they approved us to spend $130 million on the new high school. Okay.
120 of that is from a bond measure that was previously passed.
Long time ago,
right,
if any,
20,
4 or 5 years
2020 or
ago.
something. I think that's correct. But the county is by law
Mhm.
responsible for capital
Yep.
improvements and maintaining facilities, and then the school district doesn't uses monies that we get from the county for a lot of other things.
So
But we're going to have to use our own funds for things like all the furniture and the equipment, design fees, architecture fees,
Yeah.
other things like that.
But
So
the county is the one who cuts the check to build the schools and maintain the properties, correct?
that's true, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we just wanted so people
Mhm,
understood that
mhm.
out there.
And so we've got another elementary school coming that the county has already set aside money for, so that's great.
Mhm.
And then, we've got so much growth going on in the county, especially at the south end,
Yeah.
that we
We're behind.
we have what, a dozen schools or so, approximately a dozen schools. We've had to close to what they call out of district transfer. What that means is where you live in the county dictates what schools you go to.
Mhm.
And so that path currently exists. But if you live in one part of the county and you want to send your child to a different school, there's a process for doing that called an out of district transfer.
Yeah.
But we've had to close some schools to that process because of capacity reasons.
Because they're full.
Yeah.
So we got full schools
Yeah.
in South Iredale.
Well, not just in South, but in the Troutman area and some
Yeah.
other areas too. So,
Everything south of Statesville then. So we got full schools. We
Yeah.
got to build schools.
Yep.
You said something about a third of our schools are not doing very well. What's that about?
Well, when there's the state, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction measures the school systems across the state every
Mhm.
year.
That's
And
their grading mechanics.
Grading
for how
they have a
well schools
performance
are doing.
metric system
Okay.
that evaluate, through all kinds of testing and
Mhm.
and so forth, and determines the performance of all schools
Yeah.
across the state.
And how are we doing on those tests for those third that you said aren't doing very good?
Well, we have 13 what is called low performing schools.
13.
So there's a system of a grading criteria and a growth criteria. So grading goes from an A to an F with a numerical grade assigned with that. And then there's a growth component, meaning from one year to the next, how well the school did from the previous year. So you either exceed growth, meet growth, or do not meet growth.
Mhm.
And so that measurement system determined that we have 13 what they call low performing schools.
So a third of our schools aren't up to par.
36% actually.
Now, when you first got on that school board, I'm pretty confident one of the main things you wanted to do was turn those schools around. Am I right?
That is true. However, when I was running for school board in 2021 and 2022, I only thought we had like 4
Yeah.
or 5 low performing schools.
Yeah.
Where at the end of 2021, we had 11.
Yeah.
At the end of 2022, we had 12. Correction. At the end of 22, we had 11. 23, we had 12. And then last year, now we have up to 13.
So the moral of the story is things are not getting better
No,
for those schools.
No, we're going in the wrong direction.
We're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
Wow.
But it's more to the story, and I hope we get the chance to talk more into that.
We got all the time in the world today.
About that. But I think what I'm seeing is you can go to the DPI website, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and website, tons and tons and tons of information, data, charts, spreadsheets, all kinds of information. So we have people who have full-time jobs that do that, but it's more than just a numerical grade, or it's more than just a growth component that you see on a chart or a graph somewhere. There's more to it, I think, and we'll talk more about it. But in order to measure something, you have to in order to improve something, you have to measure it.
Well,
right?
I remember when I was in school, we got grades for everything, and if we didn't do good when we went home, we got a spanking. Mommy and Daddy beat the brakes out of us if we didn't come home with straight A's.
Okay, now to be clear, I'm not pushing for that. I'm not advocating. that.
This is how it was back in the day.
If you would have had better grades, maybe things would have worked out for you.
I was a problem child in school. I'm not going to lie about that. But when we didn't bring home good grades, our parents were upset with us. And right now, as I look at the grades for our schools in Iredell County as a whole, we're not happy. We're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you got in there, you wanted to do something to turn these schools around.
Well, I wanted to start the conversation.
Yeah. And we're going to have that conversation.
I wanted to have
today.
some transparency because, as I mentioned, in the whole year leading up to running for school board, we weren't talking about these things. We weren't talking about behavioral issues in the school, the safety component.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talking about these things.
So we were talking about them on the Patriot Corner.
And these are not just, these were my priorities that I ran on, but these are concerns that the superintendent has.
This is not only that, the parents.
These are all our concerns that we need to address. And I want to start the conversation.
Well, we're going to start that conversation. We're going to have a good time with it. But we're going to do it right after this break. We got 1 minute. We'll be right back. We'll see y'all here very soon. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report. We got Michael Kubiniec in the studio with us from the Iredell County School Board, and we were just having a conversation about, why you ran for school board and what you tried to do when you get in there. And one of the things I remember very fluidly was as soon as you got in there, you got set to the vice chair, and you wanted to turn our poor performing schools around. Is that correct?
Well, among other things, yes.
Yeah.
So
you were the only voice.
That was surprising to me because I brought up the issue of I call it low performing, not poor performing. Okay, but I wanted to start the conversation. So my wife, who was a school counselor, when we lived in California, and then when we moved to North Carolina, school counselor at the elementary and the middle school level. Mm-hmm. She said to me, well, now that you're some big shot school board member, why don't you learn something about something that's really important to education? Mm-hmm. And that is how poverty affects the educational process. Yeah. Okay? So she had a couple of books that she had me read. One was, I believe, by Ruby Payne, can't remember the title, but had to do with understanding poverty, understanding inner city, high poverty issues, cultural issues, what the home life is like. And then she also gave me a book on this gentleman here. His name is Baruti Kafeli, and the title is Motivating Black Males to Achieve in School and Life. Yep. Now, Baruti Kafeli is a nationally recognized educator who consults with school districts to help turn schools around. Okay. He's a black man in New Jersey, turned around several, mostly high minority black schools.
So he's basically Morgan Freeman, is what you're saying, and Lean on Me.
So I read his book. He's prolific author, motivational speaker, and I suggested to the school board, hey, why don't we look at this book? Why don't we talk to this guy? Why don't we bring him in and see what he can
see what kind of ideas he has to bring to the table.
So the superintendent did speak with him, and in fact did bring him to Statesville. Showed him some schools. He actually spoke to the Statesville community.
I remember
in a community center.
I didn't make it to that. Sadly, I was busy that day.
So we are consulting with him, so he's helping us out. We had, again, at that time, I thought we only had 3 or 4 low-performing schools. And we had some presentations on those schools in, I guess it was like March or April or something of 2023. So
as vice chairman at the school board meetings, you had our schools that weren't doing good, their principals had to come to the school board and give a report on what's going on. Mm-hmm. What's going on. We're looking at the grades of your school. It's not looking good. Tell us what's going on. Mm-hmm. That was you who brought that.
Right. But to be fair,
that just sounds smart to me. I mean,
well, at that time, being only on the board a couple months, I don't think I fully digested what they were telling us
Yeah.
because it's so many complex factors come into play in education. But what I'm coming to learn is there are so many challenges associated with a handful of schools in our county, and we're becoming um, bifurcated.
Mm-hmm.
We're having 2/3 of the schools that are performing very well,
Mm-hmm.
and these other thirds that have these challenges. And we have to do more to address the challenges with these schools.
So you were bringing in fresh new ideas of people who succeeded at this, taking schools that weren't doing good and turning them around, like my man Baruti right there. Did I say that right? Baruti? Baruti. You brought him in to give some new ideas. Was his ideas received well? Like, did people listen to him, or did they just come in, oh, we got someone here for a day, now let's get back to
I believe so. I believe so. I think he's been working with us for maybe a year and a half now or so. And I'm hoping we can get an update status report or a briefing or presentation soon on the status of him. And we also have another educator who's skilled at improving school districts and so on. So I'm hoping we get an update from him soon.
Now, I remember you actually took me to go visit Statesville High, didn't you? Me, you, and Coach. We went and visited that school right once y'all got sworn in. You remember that?
That was one of the first schools I visited, yeah.
We went and saw, what was the first one we went to see? It's the alternative school.
Northview Academy.
Northview. We went up there to see that. I went with Coach to North Iredale, too.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to North Iredale, I'm like, this school's doing great. I don't need to be
can
here.
I put a plug for Northview?
Okay.
I have kind of a special heart for that school because a lot of people have a very bad opinion of that school, and it's a school. Well, they call it the alternative school. So when children have either unfortunate discipline issues or even safety issues, it's the middle ground of not being in school. And they can't be in the school that they're in for whatever reason. So they have incredible programs there, and it's a specialized school. And for some reason, people in the community think it's just like a prison, and it's not.
I went there.
It's
I
a great
remember
school.
I was there with you. I remember watching all those kids walk in. They look like good kids. You can tell some of them was mad, and that's clearly what's happening at home. Clearly, they need some help there. Something's wrong because, they're acting out. And I know that because I was a kid who used to act out.
It's a specialized school, and some kids thrive there.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go back to the traditional school.
I know a couple parents, their kids go to that school. But yeah, we went there. We went to see what was going on. We were looking at just asking questions, trying to get to the bottom of it. I remember when we were sitting in the Statesville High, we were talking with all the principals in there. And one of the things I kept stressing was we can't be having any gang violence in our schools. You need to find out who the gang members are and kick them out. Like, that was my contribution to the whole thing. We need to get the bad actors out. And they did that to a certain degree. I remember they caught some kids with some guns there and everything.
Now, the behavioral issues, as far as I know, are much, much improved across the district.
Yeah.
And, even, especially and we have special volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers that are going to Statesville.
Yeah, people are trying.
That are working on different programs.
A lot of people are.
And I think we have, a couple of school resource officers, the police officers. Yeah. They are on station there. Yeah. So Statesville is doing a good job.
Didn't we get some metal detectors there too?
I'm not sure if they're used like continuously or randomly, but
they do have them there. Because I remember when they first started school, they just decided to put them up, and I remember seeing someone got caught with a gun there.
Yeah.
Schools should not be letting that stuff in there, and I'm glad they took a strong stand to that.
No, and we put a barber shop in Statesville High School.
Did you?
Yeah.
You get your haircut?
I got a haircut there. Yeah, that's incredible. They cut women's hair too.
Do they?
So sign up, make
I'm
an
going to have to
appointment.
go down there and get an appointment.
Yeah.
I usually cut my own hair.
Oh,
I do.
we could tell.
Can you? Is it that bad?
Yeah.
Well, everyone out there listening, I'm glad you can't see
Hey,
it.
one more plug about Northview.
Yeah,
Cell phones are not permitted in the school.
good.
Really? And there's a lot of discussion right now about the effect of cell phones and social media and on learning and education and mental illness, all the mental stress and anxiety kids have. And you talk to the teachers there, they love it. It's a great environment. They love the fact that the distraction is not there.
Well, if I'm teaching a classroom and I got a bunch of unruly kids, like I'm thinking I got me 25, 30 years ago in a classroom, all right, I got a bunch of me in there. The last thing I want is for them kids to be playing on their phones, not listening to what I'm saying, giving me an attitude, back talking me. So I can understand why teachers like the cell phones out, because it gives them control of their classroom. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I believe Pennsylvania, Delaware do not allow cell phones out. South Carolina just implemented no cell phones accessible during the day.
We're going to a break. We'll be back in a minute, folks. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report, and we've got Iredell County School Board member Michael Kubiniec in the studio with us. He was just telling us what he did when he first got in there, when he first got elected as vice chair. He brought in some fresh ideas. He tried to start a conversation about turning our poor-performing schools around, brought a little accountability in there. So what happened, man? You were vice chairman. Next thing you know, you're not. You remember that?
Unfortunately, I do, yes.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
I remember that very well. Well, hold up. Before we get into there, as you're trying to turn these schools around, there has been a trend in the community, a little name called Iredell Free News. And every week, every 2 weeks, they put out the worst kind of garbage they can to try to make your life miserable. Is that true?
Well, the worst thing about it is that all the different articles and the lies, never once have they ever come to me and say, "Hey, can we interview you on this topic, what we're talking about, or whatever it is? Can we have a question or 2 or 3, 5?"
Yeah.
I've never been.
They never asked you your opinion on it. They just put out garbage after garbage.
So all the thing that gets published has a lack of integrity to it, since you don't have two sides of a story.
Well, has they ever contributed one positive thing to our school system in the conversation about turning our schools around?
I know the superintendent's generally not happy with them because a lot of the negative things get published.
Well, negative. Reese, a lot of folks out there, if you're watching us like online right now, we're going to pull up a list of all the news articles you've had to put up with. Reese, go ahead and throw that up there. Look at this, folks. Scroll down. Look at that. All this is one little Facebook page.
It's not just about me. It's about other members, too.
Yeah, but, I mean, it looks like you've been in there 20 years.
Well,
but
actually, at the very last one, board member Brian Sloan and I went to East Iredell Elementary School for Academic Day.
Yeah.
So this was an event for the students to showcase some of their work. And Brian and I were there, and they actually had a couple pictures of us with the children. So
they were nice to you?
Yeah, I was treated real good.
All right,
in that
so the bottom news article on that list is the only nice one out of about 30, folks. So you're trying to turn our schools around, and you got this guy out here just causing as much drama and controversy as he can in our community. I don't get it.
And even before I was elected, I had negative articles published.
Yeah, the Puppet Master. I love that one.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Who's the Puppet Master?
I don't know. Apparently I am. Apparently I'm telling you what to do. You know, you got me telling a grown man what to do. Like, how ridiculous are you? You
know, I supposedly had a campaign manager.
Yeah.
Was that you?
That's what I said in a meeting we had. I was joking in jest because they're like, "Who are you? Why are you here?"
No,
I'm a citizen. I care about my school. I care about my community. I care about seeing our government doing its job and turning schools around.
no, I didn't have a campaign manager.
No,
I
you
wouldn't have
didn't.
hired you if I needed one.
Well, I mean, I was advising all four of y'all. I mean, every day y'all didn't know how to run campaigns. I did, and I was sharing information because I wanted y'all to win. I wanted four people to work together.
No, but just to be clear, I didn't have a campaign manager.
I know you didn't.
I did.
I wasn't running your campaign. I wasn't running anyone's
but
campaign.
The haters like to think
Yeah.
otherwise.
If I was running any campaign, it was probably school board district 3s because every good idea they had for their campaign came out of me.
Well, if it weren't for you, she wouldn't have won.
No, she wouldn't have won. She would not have won. When the whole system was working to stop them, and I went out into the streets and I got the votes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that another day. But we got all these fake news articles. They wrote crap about me too. When you read the comments and the articles, it's crazy. It's crazy. People just thinking I'm saying this. I'm saying, look, if I'm going to say something, I'm going to come on the radio. I'm going to get Reese in the production studio, and we're going to do a show, and we're going to talk about what we want to talk about. I don't create fake accounts and make comments. I do radio shows, and I talk about the truth. So I just had to say that real quick.
That's great. That's great. But it's just, it's shameful because as a journalist, I think you would want to have integrity.
Yeah.
And report the issues.
Yeah.
And then there's so many issues that don't get reported
No.
that should be reported.
No, they
So, and that's the problem with journalism in our society is that the issues that don't get brought up don't get talked about.
And see, when journalists don't do their job, then we just have to come on the radio and do your job for you. The next week's show, I might put on a suit and a tie, and I might come in here. I'd do a newscast, like the people on the TV stations do. See if we can do their job. Because no one trusts them to do it, so we might as well do it.
But, I think one of the big catalysts for just all that happened is asking questions.
Yeah.
And I've stated it many times that I ask questions. I ask a lot of questions.
And people get defensive
unfortunately
when you ask questions.
And-
I don't understand it like you're out to get them. You just want to understand what's going on.
Understand and learn. And it's mostly to learn and to learn.
Yeah.
And the intent is not to accuse anyone of doing something wrong or being incompetent or anything negative.
Yeah. We just want to know why it's an F
why
when it should be an A.
Why do things happen that way? Why have we always done it that way?
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do is because people are more worried about themselves. They're more worried about their position in the trough as opposed to the whole of society. I think some of that has something to do with it. And you can tell by the way people handle situations, especially when they're facing criticism. Like if you're, let's say you were sitting at the top of the education system. Let's say you were a superintendent and you had to explain why 30-year schools aren't doing very good. And they've only gotten worse under your watch. So I could understand why people would get defensive. I really can.
But coming from companies, high-tech companies that I worked for, you make these products for your customers that demand not only just the work, but they demand excellence. They demand quality. And when this complex machinery that we're selling to a customer, say some flaw happens, some design thing that was unanticipated or something, you got to figure it out and you got to ask why. You got to keep asking why, the scientific method, root cause analysis, and to get to the root of why something is not working or what the problem is, and you got to figure out ways to solve it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my thinking on how things. I'm kind of digital in the sense that things have root causes, and you have to do the hard work to figure out what they are in order to develop solutions. to implement corrective action.
You sound like you have an engineer's mindset.
I do.
You think like an engineer.
I do. I always think like an engineer.
Yeah.
So if I'm planning a vacation, it's like spreadsheet or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm for one thrilled that you stepped up to try to bring some common sense to our school board, to try to bring a little accountability and ask good questions, because we have a lot of questions out there. I remember when I was in the classroom, we would get rewarded for asking tough questions. I don't think you've got rewarded very much. I think that you've gotten done very wrong for asking questions.
And yes, but there are a lot of great people in the school system, in the district.
Amazing people.
And they know what's in my heart.
Yeah.
They know what's in my heart. And they know that I've got this continuous improvement mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I saw it in the military. I saw it in corporate America, that people who have a lack of confidence, they get defensive.
Yeah, they can't take accountability for their actions.
And that's unfortunate.
And a lot of people live in false realities out there. And when you start chipping away at that reality with the truth, then they get defensive and they shut down. Then a lot of people just go to war with the truth because, I don't want to listen to the truth. And the truth right now is a third of our schools are not doing good. And you went in there to do something about it. You were vice chair. Then you got censored for it. Then you got removed as vice chair.
Mm-hmm. With a lot of
I've got a lot of questions about that.
A lot of false accusations.
Me and the community in Iredell County, we have a lot of questions about why we could support 4 people for school board. You get in there and one of them throws you under the bus.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of lies, a lot of false accusations,
mm-hmm.
a lot of collusion.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it. Why should improving our school system,
mm-hmm. delivering
academic excellence, why should that become controversial?
It shouldn't be.
We should all be like in a skull, an 8-man skull rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Because if you're not rowing in the same direction, you're going to flounder in the river.
And that's the direction I want us to start going in as a county, as a community. Because this is our future we're talking about here, folks. This is the future of Iredell County, the future of everyone's family, your children, everyone that we try to teach and instill our values so they don't make our same mistakes. Well, we got a third of our schools that the grades are saying there's some mistakes being made out there. And I don't see anyone.
Yeah, we'll get more into that, I hope.
You got some slides and stuff. We'll bring that up. But we need to have a real talk about that and get to the bottom of it, because a lot of people are out there. I mean, this is an issue, and we're the only ones I see willing to stand up and talk about it, Cap.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about it with you here today, and I want to talk about it with the community. I'd love to talk about it with the school board, at school board meetings.
Well, you know what I think you're going to have to do? I think you're going to have to start your own show up here.
Well, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Make sure you remind me. I have an exclusive announcement that I'll make toward the end of the show.
Okay, well, we can't wait for that announcement. We're going to get a little bit more into the censorship, the fake news, and all the other nonsense, but we'll do it back in a minute. Welcome back, WSIC. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report, and we have Iredell County School Board member Michael Kubiniec in the studio with us today. We were just talking about, how you came in and tried to turn our schools around, and you got mercilessly attacked by the fake news. I'm talking just nonsense after nonsense, folks. And they added me in there, too. I don't understand what I had to do with it. I saw a list of all the FOIA requests sent to the school. And that guy sent in a FOIA request wanting the footage from when you and I went to Northview. We're down there trying to get to the bottom of why kids are struggling. And some guy wanting every video recording of our meeting. Like, that was the I remember us sitting in there talking with the principal. I don't remember their name, but it was one of the nicest talks we've ever had. We talked about real stuff. I remember why they asked me. They asked me why I was there, and I said, well, I have a soft spot in my heart for kids that no one cares about. Because I used to be one of them kids. I really did. But I cared. But you went in there, you tried to clean it up, and then you got censored, and you got removed as vice chairman. So talk to us. I'll never forget that night. I'll never forget it, because we got a full Republican school board, folks. We just elected 4 people to work together. And you got, in the audience, it was a mob of angry Democrats that some people in the community had been building up for a couple months. And they sold you out. A Republican school board sold out our most conservative school board member to a mob of angry Democrats.
So
That's what happened.
So the previous board chair, just get right to the point, manufactured a bunch of lies,
Mm-hmm.
and he was able to convince 3 other board members
Mm-hmm.
of those lies.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when we went to Northview Academy, if you remember, normally when you go to a school, you go to the main office through the
Yeah.
front door, you sign in and so on, you go through the normal process. Well, one of the assistant principals came out to the parking lot and brought us into
They
the
walked
school.
us in.
Brought us into the school. So then so now I'm accused of not signing in when visiting a school.
Nobody asked me.
Not following the proper process.
Nobody said, hey, Micah, sign in here.
Okay.
Nobody asked me when I went to North Iredale. No one asked me when I went to Northview. They did ask me at Statesville High, because I remember when we were sitting in there, Jeff James called up the principal and said, make sure you have Micah sign in, because you got the fake news out here ready to, oh my God, Micah's visiting our schools. Oh.
So other things that the previous chair did was, for example, I emailed the previous operations director
Mm-hmm.
about, he gave us a presentation on some maintenance metrics.
You wanted more information.
Right. So I said, hey,
You were
I don't
asking
understand
questions.
this. Just ask a question.
You were doing what Captain K does
Right.
and asking
So
questions.
I said, hey, your data doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. He emailed me back. Here's the corrected information. I seen what you were talking about. Here it is. I said, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us a third example was, he gave us a presentation on the cost for the stadium project for North Iredale High School, about $3 million. And so he gave us the different figures for lighting, the AstroTurf, the track, so forth. And the numbers didn't add up. So at the board meeting, I told him, I said, hey, the numbers don't seem to add up. Can you look into that? So then we traded a few emails after the board meeting. He said, oh, you're right. Here's the corrected numbers. Mm-hmm. So he used that as information.
Well, we all know
that I'm somehow doing something wrong.
Yeah, well, we know what you were doing wrong. You were asking questions. You were trying to improve our poor performing schools. You were bringing in fresh ideas. You were trying to hold people accountable and get some results.
Mm-hmm.
Get some results like you get in the military, that you spent 30 years of your life serving our country. But I remember that. I remember at the time there was a lot of controversy at the time over the books. Little Miss Paula Memnall. Everybody should know Paula. She's an angel. She reminds me of my grandma. That's why I defend Paula so hard when people pick on her, because she reminds me of my grandma. And, I asked who would defend my grandma if the bad people were coming after me. But she was out there trying to get porno out the schools, because she was reading some very filthy stuff that they wouldn't even let her read. Let's just go ahead and set that straight. Miss Paula was told by the former chairman of our school board, which was Bill Howe, that you cannot read the excerpts of that book from this podium, but they're allowed in our libraries. So you can't read from a school board podium the contents of this book, but you could have them in the schools. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But that's what she was trying to get. She was trying to get those books out. And for whatever reason, people within the administration were up to no good.
Well, the standard is vulgarity and academic suitability,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So a board or a school official can't quote ban a book because they don't like it
Yeah.
or they don't agree with it, but the standard is vulgarity, I believe that's the term, and academic suitability. So members of the community were bringing up sexually explicit, age inappropriate
Yeah.
books that they felt were inappropriate for being in
Well,
schools.
if it was too inappropriate to read from the podium, clearly it's too inappropriate to be in the schools, folks.
And I support parental rights.
Yeah.
But I don't think supporting parental rights and being on a school board and supporting teachers and principals and officials, that's not incompatible.
No.
Because we all want our schools to be successful.
Well, the community's the one who wanted the porno out the schools. All of our pastors, all of our good church people out there, all the good people who make up Iredell County, they didn't want that filth in the schools. And that's why everyone loved Miss Paula for standing up and trying to clean it out. And there was just so much pushback. Like, I don't understand how anyone in education could defend that garbage. But you got sold out and thrown under the bus for it.
It's very strange where people will accuse you of wanting to ban books, but not one person has ever come up to the podium to speak at public comment and says, I want you to keep this filthy book in the school. I want you, and I'll read you an excerpt or whatever. I think this is okay. Yeah. Nobody's ever done that. But I think we've got policies in place and the attention has been brought that has achieved, I think, the right behaviors now. So I would say things are getting better. Yeah. But frankly, state law has a carve out for schools for how the First Amendment rights are balanced. And it's unfortunate that there's a carve out for schools, churches, a couple of other things. That
I just want
this shouldn't be controversial.
It shouldn't be. And I just want to talk to all you people out there who wanted to cause problems over those books and say a bunch of book banners and this, that, and the other. You fought to keep porno in the schools. You fought to keep books that graphically describe in great detail rape, all kinds of it. And you wanted to threaten our community with racial division if we took those books out. Like, what kind of example are you setting for your kids? I don't know. But we're going to talk more about that when we get back from this break in 1 minute. We love y'all. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report. We've got special guest Michael Kubiniec from the Iredell County School Board in here, and he's telling us his story, all the crap he's went through. So if anyone out there is thinking about running for school board or public office, this might dissuade you from wanting to do that, just from all the nonsense he's put up with. But we were just telling your story of all the nonsense you went through, just trying to do one simple thing for our county, and that's turn our schools around. You were censored. You had your vice chairmanship removed. You were sold out to a mob of angry, lying Democrats because that's what y'all were doing. And they were threatening our county with racial division. Like, you should be really proud of that. But keep trying to be me on the podium. So you ended up going to court. One of your fellow school board members took you to court. Took me to court too. Said we were stalking them, harassing them, and
ironically, the month after
you get censored and removed.
I got censored. The month after.
1 month after he gets censored, removed as vice chair, attacked on a little Facebook page called the Iredell Fake News, and
right. So I was accused of stalking.
Yeah.
So get this. I'm accused of going to someone's house at all hours of the night, taking pictures, harassing, threatening emails,
Yeah.
threatening phone calls. I'm accused of all these things. Well, think about it. I'm going to get up at 3:00 in the morning to drive to Statesville
No, you're
and drive
asleep
by
at 3.
somebody's house.
You're asleep, curled up next to your woman, trying to stay
Exactly.
warm. I know where you are at 3.
Exactly. So it's unfortunate that anybody can go to wherever you go, the magistrate, and
Mhm.
you can file charges against someone
Mhm.
and be totally without merit.
Yeah.
And so I was charged with a civil complaint for stalking, and I was charged criminally.
Mhm.
Okay. And they both had to go through the court process.
And all that got thrown out. Right?
And it got, well, this is how it shows how unserious
Mhm.
this person was. The very first court hearing, I show up with my lawyer, and she doesn't even show up with a lawyer.
Mhm.
How serious is that?
I was there. I remember.
Right?
I didn't show up with
Right.
a lawyer, though.
So the civil case went to trial. Everything that she tried to present
Mhm.
had no evidence.
No.
And the funny thing is they put me on the witness stand.
Yeah, I remember.
Not once did they ever ask me, well, did you drive up and take pictures in all hours of the night in the middle? Did you do these things?
Yeah.
Did you contact her family members
Yeah.
in order to gather information to defame her?
Mhm.
Did you even do that? So they didn't ask me hardly any questions.
No, they didn't.
So how serious was that?
And then they throw it out. They said this is a waste of our time. That's what the judge said. This is a waste of our time.
Right.
She said these laws were written for people who really are suffering this stuff, who have crazy people after them, not to solve political disputes,
That's right.
which is all it was.
I mean, you could imagine, spousal abuse situations, and, a spouse walks into the court and all beat up and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, the courts are going to act on
Yeah,
that.
that's what the court should be dealing
That's what
with.
they're doing. But this is political.
Yeah.
A political hit job.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, folks. There's a reason all this vindictive, spiteful behavior started. And it's all because of my mother, Jill Scully. Yep, my mother, the woman who brought me kicking and screaming into this world. Because she went down to, the Board of Elections, and she filed, was it a residency challenge on School Board Member District 3? Because my mom had evidence and reason to believe that they abandoned their district, which is you give up your seat when you do that. We might bring my mom in here one day and talk about that, but she went out and did it. I didn't help her. Cap didn't help her. My mom went out and did that because she was led to believe that one of our politicians were not living where they said they were. And she had a hearing and she made a case, and sadly it got dismissed, but we'll just have to bring her on here one day to talk about that. But as a result of that, you and I get taken to court. I remember I went down there every month for 6 months, twice a month sometimes. I didn't have a lawyer.
And I have no idea why you were charged.
I don't know. I never got to hear any of
because
mine.
we had nothing to do with each other.
No, we had nothing to do with it. But you had fake news articles saying we were Joshua and Caleb, right?
But
you remember that?
But you know something?
Hmm.
The fake news reporter sat through the civil trial.
Yeah.
And at the very end of that trial, she told people outside the courtroom that 4 people who testified under oath lied.
Perjury is what that's called.
And the article that was written didn't have any input from me.
No.
So it didn't report the story.
Yeah.
It didn't report
It's fake news.
The
You put out lies and disinformation in our community. You've got us suffering lawfare, just wicked lawfare. I mean, Trump was going through the same thing from the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And we're suffering with it here in Iredell County.
And there were probably like 5 or 6 articles written over the span of this
I know.
time with quotes from this accuser.
Yeah.
Accusing me of these things.
But no one called to ask you your opinion, right?
Nobody ever called to ask my opinion, but all the lies that were in those articles,
Yeah.
were the foundation of her case against me
Mm-hmm.
that were all unproven in the court of law.
It sounds like they're working with the fake news to try to slander and defame people is what it sounds like. It's really what it sounds like. I wish I had the FOIA request because I do find it funny that Mr. Fake News wants to launch another FOIA request after one of these people launch a FOIA request asking for the same thing they FOIA requested. So I'm wondering who's telling who what. We know who's going to the fake news and lying.
And so
trying to stay relevant, trying to stay a part of the conversation when you bring nothing to the conversation at all. Because this man's been trying to turn our schools around, and people sold him out. They sold him out, stuck a knife in his back, and just gave him to a mob of angry Democrats in a conservative county that votes 3-1 Republican. That's what y'all did to my man here. And all he was trying to do was fix the problems. So Iredell improves. But people want to play politics with our children.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because politics is supposed to be a team sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
all I see is people trying to get you.
It's been a blood sport.
That's all I see.
It's been a blood sport.
I see hundreds of people in the community go out and say, these 4 people are going to work together to fix our schools. Well, what happened? Now we got one person stabbing the other 3 in the back and everyone else that supported them. When we're trying to fix our schools.
You know, it's interesting that I keep track of the votes we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not like the minor votes, like approving a meeting minutes or something. Just like 200 votes so far.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking through it the other day. I'm going like, what meaningful votes have we made?
None.
And
the only votes I see him making is to censor you.
Well, I can think
condemn you.
You know, we approved a mental health grant.
Like how childish is that?
So we approved a grant for mental health services in the school. Okay, that one.
I remember that.
But, you know, we approved things like a school to go to some visit to do an overseas trip, or we rename this school, or we move some money around in a budget resolution. We do things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking myself, how are we really making a difference?
Yeah.
And I'm struggling with the answer to that question because I look to myself, how am I making a difference?
Well,
I told you I wanted to help improve our teacher pay, recruitment,
get
retention,
more money.
Improve low-performing schools, deal with those issues to improve academic excellence, and I don't see it happening.
I saw what happened. You stepped up to do the right thing, and devils just knifed you.
So again, this is all my opinion, right? This is all my opinion. But if you're going to run for school board or any elected office, the first question you want to ask yourself is, how can I make a difference?
Yeah.
Right? Because you want to leave it better than when you got there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a question I'm struggling with, because how are we making a real difference?
I mean, when we look at the grades,
and I don't know.
It's going downhill.
That's unfortunate that I don't have a good answer for, but hopefully we can start the conversation on some of these challenges that we face, and we've got to develop new ways of thinking. Bring in other stakeholders. Bring in the community. Yeah. Why not hold a town hall with community members to help with cell phone use in the schools?
Well, no one seems to have the courage to do anything except you. And when you had the courage to do things, you got the fake news stabbing you in the back line about you. You got, I don't want to say people on the board are doing you wrong, but people on the board are doing you wrong. At least the old board. We'll see what this new board does. But you did. You came in, you tried to bring it, you tried to clean it up, and it just looks like people want to play politics with you. And I don't really understand it. Maybe if we were more mature in our duties and responsibilities, we would look for ways how to improve things instead of just saying Captain's a bad man. I don't understand how you're a bad man. I don't.
It's interesting. Politics is the means to getting the power in order to do what? To implement good policy and to do good things, make improvements, improve the system.
We're going to talk about the system here once we get back from this break. We'll see you here in another minute, folks. Welcome back, everybody out there. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report. We've got Iredell County School Board member Michael Kubiniec in the studio with us. He's just been telling us his story of all the nonsense he's put up with since getting on that school board and trying to turn it around for us folks. He's dealt with a lot of, I just want to call it evilness, because that's what a lot of it is, watching from the outside what this man's had to put up with, all to try to improve our school system. A lot of evilness out there. But you put together some slides, and we're going to start talking about and presenting all this information about what's going on out there. And you put together these slides, and you've got the data, you've got the grades, you put in some work. So you're a school board member. We've got issues about what's going on. Educate us, brother.
Okay, thank you, Micah. So just a bit real overview. We've got 38 schools in the district.
38.
Roughly 20,500 students and 1,300 teachers. So one of the biggest employers in the county. Slide 6, please. Okay. So this is just a real overview of the academic performance from last year. Now, you can find the data listed on the DPI website. And so I think the conversation will go, I'll talk about some data and then
I'll
and
ask
give
some questions. I'll be you, and I'll ask the questions. How
yeah.
about that?
Okay. So in this first slide right here, we have the graduation rate over the years, last several years, is around 87%. And then you can see, as I mentioned before, there's a couple of metrics. One has to do with growth. And so about 1/3 of our schools met or exceeded growth. 12 schools increased the growth overall from year to year.
So we got 12 schools that are doing better than they were
Mhm.
the year before. That's good.
So you can see some there. Now, as you move down the list, as we talked about before, 13 low-performing schools. Talk a little bit what that means. 11 continually low-performing, and then
So 11 of them
right.
just aren't. They ain't getting better.
Right. So next slide, please.
Well, hold on. What's this 5 schools?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Restart.
Okay.
So looking back, if you go to the next slide, slide 7. Okay. So you can see 10 years worth of data.
Okay.
Okay.
So 2014,
So
we had 6 of them not
right.
doing good.
All right. So what is a low performing school? A low performing school is you get the D or F grade and you either met or not met growth. So going back through time from 2014 to 2019, we're roughly 5 to 6 low performing schools.
Mhm.
Okay, out of 36 that get evaluated. And then you had the pandemic. So you don't see years 20 and 21 listed there because the data was kind of suspended from being recorded.
Okay.
All right.
So from 2019 to 2022,
So
here in Iredell County, we went from 5 to 11
right, 5 to 11.
over the course of the pandemic.
Right. So they suspended the recording of all the performance.
So we don't know what happened during those 2 years. All we know is we come back, and more than twice is doing.
And I assume this is, well, school academic performance is probably typical during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Things were not good, right? Because
Mhm.
schools were shut down and so on. But in 2022, the data performance system went back on, and then you can see we went up to 13. This was from the 2023-24 school year. So going up in a direction
So
that we don't.
I
that we
remember
shouldn't.
you said earlier in the show, when you first got on there, you didn't know this many schools were
No.
doing that bad.
No.
So when you got in there is when this information first came to light, right?
Right. Well, when I was first running, I thought we had 4 or 5 low performing
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
you get in there, it's like, well, I got 11,
Well-
12 now.
Well, I didn't even really know we had 11 or 12 until 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I didn't know we had 11 or 12 until I was reviewing all this data in December. and realized that, oh, wow, we have 13 now, and the 2 previous years, 12 and 11. So I didn't even know it was this bad.
Yeah, that's bad, folks.
Okay.
We need to talk about it.
All right. So slide 8.
What else we got?
So
for
there's
us
a
here?
different way of looking at this called continually low performing schools. And that just means if you've been low performing for 2 of previous 3 years. So 11 of our 11 of our low performing schools are what they call continually low performing. So those 11 schools now get treated a little differently, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Next.
What, number 9?
All right. So you can just see the grades associated with those schools. The A being the green line,
Yeah,
and
it's at the bottom.
It showed about two.
A's are doing the worst, folks.
and
That's what
then-
this chart shows.
And then you can see that, the F went up, and the D, F and the D is proportionally
As a whole,
increased.
for Iredell County,
Yeah, and so
we got more F's than we got A's, folks.
Right.
And C is your average. So we
Right.
have average per the school performance grading system.
Yeah, so the trend shows C kind of holding even. The F's and the D's went up, and the B's and the A's went down.
And B's went up. I see B's going up.
No, B's went up, but lower than pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Slide 10, please.
I'd like to know who them B schools are so I can go
And
take
then
the
the
principals out to dinner.
Okay, and then the school growth, you can see the not met growth in the red line over the years.
Yeah, it's the
So
top.
we had to jump again pre-pandemic to where we are now, and then not meth has gone up and exceed has gone down. The met growth has kind of stayed about even. So
Yeah, what I'm looking at here is since 2019, since 2020, things have gotten worse and they're not getting better.
okay, so again,
That's what the data's showing me.
right.
folks.
So we're showing data. I'm not evaluating. The purpose of this discussion is not to, again, it's not to say that our teachers are not working hard.
We're just
They're-
reviewing data right
Right,
now.
right.
That's all we're doing.
Right.
I haven't seen this data before. This is the first time I've seen it. And what I'm looking at, Iredell County, is that we're not doing good.
Okay. So if we go to slide 11 is a graphical depiction. So this is the same data you looked at, but it just shows you the individual schools. So you can see Third Creek, middle, the top, then MB Mills Elementary, Statesville High. You can see that they've been have been challenged, 10 years
Hmm.
essentially, and then the other schools, Cloverleaf is listed there. You see
Yeah.
there in the green, and then you can see post-pandemic, 2022, 3 and 4. We have more schools having the challenges.
Yeah. Well, when I see data like this, like if I was in a decision-making role, I would start allocating resources to these schools that aren't doing good till they start doing better.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
That's what I'd do.
All right, so let's go to slide 14.
Okay.
So there's some flexibility that the school district can do to help address turnaround some of our continually low performing schools. So it's called the restart model, and what it does is it allows you to use some flexibility on how you budget, the hiring, the school calendar. You can modify your curriculum and how you do assessment. So it's giving you charter school-like flexibility for helping to turn some of these schools around.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. This restart school, if they designate a school restart, what you're basically saying is you don't have to follow the rules anymore.
Well, it's giving you flexibility on how you follow the rules.
So if
So-
I'm following the rules and the rules led me to terrible grades, what's that say?
Well, so we voted a week ago to designate 5 schools as restart or to
Okay.
continue some of them. So that process triggers some other things that are supposed to address these schools. One issue that I see is we've had several schools be in restart designation for many years, yet we haven't punched through it and gotten out of the low performing school mode.
Okay. So it looks like they're
so-
trying something, huh?
so-
So after 2 years, they're finally trying to do something about these schools. After
Well, no, it's been an ongoing process. But
Mhm.
what I'm suggesting is that we have to. I'm trying to open the conversation. And say, if this process hasn't solved the problem in the last 3-4 years, what are we going to do different this time?
We're going to talk about what we're going to do different here as soon as we get back from this break. Love y'all. Welcome back to Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report. We have special guest Iredell County School Board member Michael Kubiniec in the studio with us. And he's just basically told his story about why he ran for school board, what you've done, what you put up with, what you've been through. It hasn't been easy. Just on behalf of Iredell County, I'd like to apologize to you for all the rotten stuff you've been through. You know, we didn't elect you to have to endure all that. We put you in there to turn our schools around. So we're going to back you up and try to help you get that done. But just pulling up that fake news article, you've probably had 20 slanderous, defaming articles written about you.
Maybe. Yeah.
And not one time did they ever call you up.
Nope.
I mean, that's got to give you some thick skin at night.
I don't think about it.
You don't
I don't
think
worry
about
about it.
I mean, how can you? No matter what, you're going to have people out to get you if you're in politics.
No.
That's just the
I mean,
way
I
of the world.
don't really care what they say.
Yeah, I just didn't think it would be people that we backed who would be doing you so wrong. But that's for another day, folks. What we have here, we need to talk a little bit more about the school board. One thing I've learned just watching y'all try to make sense of the mess is politicians, school board members, I mean, your standard politician, they really don't have much responsibility at the end of the day, especially in Iredell County, because the way we structure our government, see, we have our municipals, we have our city, we have our county, we have our school system. They have managers or superintendents, city manager, county manager for your city and county governments. The way we structure our governments here is we basically put all the authority, all the responsibility, all the decision making into either your managers or your superintendent. That's the way things are. Chairman of they have, explain what a chairman can do or can't do.
The chairman, he speaks for the school board.
Okay, he's the voice of the school system.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he has got a lot of authority.
Okay.
And of course, he runs the meeting. He sets the agenda.
Yeah.
And by setting the agenda, he determines what we talk about,
Okay.
what gets covered.
Okay.
So
if we want to get these poor performing schools, we need to be talking to Doug Knight, chairman of our school board now.
mhm.
We need to ask him what his plan is.
And again, the whole purpose of our discussion here is we've got these significant issues,
We do.
and we need to be talking about how to solve them.
We do.
It's not about bashing teachers. It's
No.
not about bashing anybody.
No.
It's not about firing anybody. It's not about anything
I
like
would
that.
argue maybe we need to fire someone.
Well, from my perspective, it's about how do we fix these issues.
Yeah.
And I also look at it like I was elected to be responsible for delivering academic excellence
Yep.
for our schools. But we, school board member, can't do any of
No,
that.
school
We
board
have to
member.
hold the superintendent accountable
Mhm.
to achieve that.
So,
So he's accountable for delivering results.
but he's the one running the school system, right?
Mhm.
You know, I've watched y'all's school board meetings for several years now, and there's one point Jeff James always wants to make, and that's that he's in charge, that he's the shot caller, that he's the decision maker. You have made that point, good sir. Well, as a decision maker, what are we doing about all these F's, buddy? What are we doing? Other than, well, we won't get into that.
And I want to start the conversation because there's, we've heard and we continue to hear a lot of other complex factors that are involved
I hear a
at
lot of
play.
excuses is what
And
I
so
hear.
we need to talk about demographics. We need to talk about, we've got poverty issues. We've got high minority issues. We've got schools in in high poverty areas
hmm
that have challenges, but we have schools that are not high poverty
That aren't
that are
doing
also
well.
having challenges.
Yeah, Troutman Middle.
So it's not purely a demographic
No.
problem in my view. Now, again, others differ with me, but I'm going by my observations from looking at data.
hmm
Now, other experts can come in and they can talk more to the social cultural thing, and they're probably more knowledgeable about me in those areas. However, I'm looking at the data and I'm looking at results. And when you start to see schools that are not in the high minority, who are not in the high poverty area, now starting to show decreased academic performance in addition to the standing systemic problems we have, that seems to be a red flag.
hmm
But that's not to take away that we shouldn't be solving all those schools as issues, which we should and we must. But we've got to have the conversation, and I'm hoping we can continue to have that, because we talked about it, for 20 minutes or something at a school board meeting, and that's sufficiently not enough. We
Yeah.
need to spend a whole day working this issue, in
Yeah,
my
well,
view.
You used to be able to make school board member comments at the end of your meetings to talk about issues like this. Can't do it anymore, can we?
No, sir, we cannot.
Well, I would talk into that, but I don't want you to get censored again. So, we got Captain K, 30-year Navy man, success his whole life. Anything this man has done, it's been successful. You came in there, you tried to turn our schools around, and you were treated very badly for it. Very badly for it. And I have watched month after month as you seem to be one of the only voices on that school board who wants to have a talk about the issues impacting our school system. And one of the biggest issues I see out there, folks, is our poor performing schools. They're not doing very good. And I ask, what is our superintendent doing? Are you going to Rotary meetings? Or are you sitting down with your principals and asking, what's your plan? What are you doing here? Why is things not improving? Are you too busy at Republican meetings? Are you too busy playing politics? Because that's what it looks like to me, sir. You're playing politics with our education. And you remember Bowen Nutting? I remember Bowen. When she left, was it about a year or so ago, a little more than a year, she put out a news article to the Iredell Fake News. And at the end of that article, she was condemning all the politics that are being played with our education system. And when I look at it, we got a man here, he's doing the hard thing, and that's being the adult in the room, trying to have a conversation about the issues impacting the family. Well, our family's not doing very good because a third of our family, they're struggling. They're struggling. They're struggling very bad. And things aren't improving. So I hope this show, if anything, creates a sense of urgency in our school system. Because I remember when you first got elected, one of my biggest issues was, we were talking about this stuff 2 years ago. We were. I remember us having those conversations and what we can do to fix it. And there was no urgency. I didn't see any urgency from anyone in an administration until it became time to censor you, till it came time to throw you under the bus. That's when I saw the urgency in our school system. Now, I know you can't throw your school system under the bus or your school board, and I don't want you to. But y'all are making mistakes, folks. You've been making mistakes for a long time, since 2020. Things aren't improving.
And Micah, I don't care about the personal attacks.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
And they can continue, and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about turning around these schools, turning around our school system.
Yeah.
And other school districts in the state have thrived and improved their school districts
with these same testing.
in the same same
So
time
they're
frame.
getting graded the same rules apply to them that apply to
Right.
us.
So we go to
And they're getting it done.
Right. So we go from 5 to 13 low performing schools, and other districts. I can specifically think of one that has gone from 14 to 1.
Yeah.
So I want to start the conversation. I would like people to be curious. Let's learn from others. I'd love for someone to say, gee, let me sit down with you and talk through what you've looked at and what recommendations and suggestions you have. I've got a couple pages worth of ideas for discussion, and I would love to have those conversations.
I mean, at this point, I don't know what else to do. You know, we sacked the whole school board, put new people in there to try to turn stuff around. All I've seen is pushback from the administration as they make excuses and give us no results. That's my observation. It's what I've seen. So I don't know what else to do other than to just go get a couple hundred people and show up every month at the school board meetings, calling them out in their face and coming on the radio and pointing out all this stuff till someone has a little urgency to turn this stuff around.
Yeah, would love to see more people come to school board meetings, see what's going on, talk to us about the issues that's important to them, talk about the things that we're voting on.
Engage yourself.
Engage.
Engage.
And just because you may not have a child anymore in the school system doesn't mean it's not important, because it is.
This is our future. You know, I want Iredell County to have the best education possible. I do.
So do I.
We all do.
But I got to squeeze in this exclusive
All right, tell us
announcement.
what is it, man?
So February 25th,
February 25th.
6:30 p.m.
Okay.
at the Hilton Garden Inn at exit 33, which is next to a restaurant called Jeffrey's.
Okay.
I'm going to hold what I'm calling the South Iredell Education Town Hall.
Okay.
So since I'm at the far end of the county down south, I want to hold a conference room and invite folks from down south, South Iredell, my constituents, to come in and tell me what they think about how I'm doing, what I'm doing, what's on their mind, what their concerns are. I can update on some things and just have a conversation.
So you're holding a town hall to talk to your people about
Right.
what's going on.
Right, so February 25th at 6:30 at the Hilton Garden Inn on exit 33.
Captain, I just want to say thank you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me on and talking about some serious issues, because sometimes it's difficult to talk about serious issues, but they gotta have those conversations. Got to happen.
Well, I'm sure that this conversation is going to cause something. So we'll see. We'll bring you on another week if we got to. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael.
Iredell County, we love you. We'll see you next week.